we shall overcome. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. Though I join hands so often with students and others behind jail bars singing it, we shall overcome. Sometimes we've had tears in our eyes when we joined together to sing it, but we still decided to sing it. We shall overcome. No, before this victory is won, some will have to get thrown in jail some more, but we shall overcome. Don't worry about us. Before the victory is won, some of us will lose jobs, but we shall overcome. Before the victory is won, even some will have to face physical death. But if physical death is the price that some must pay to free their children from a permanent psychological death, then nothing shall be more redemptive. We shall overcome. Before the victory is won, some will be misunderstood and called bad names and dismissed as rabble-rousers and agitators, but we shall overcome. And I'll tell you why. We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. We shall overcome because Carlyle is right. No lie can live forever. We shall overcome because William Cullen Bryant is right. Truth crushed to earth will rise again. We shall overcome because James Russell Lowell is right. Truth forever on the scaffold, wrong forever on the throne. Yet that scaffold sways the future. And behind the dim unknown standeth God within the shadow, keeping watch above his own. We shall overcome because the Bible is right. You shall reap what you sow. We shall overcome. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. And with this faith, we will go out and adjourn the councils of despair and bring new light into the dark chambers of pessimism. And we will be able to rise from the fatigue of despair to the buoyancy of hope. And this will be a great America. We will be the participants in making it so. And so as I leave you this evening, I say, walk together, children. Don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the corner. All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
All right, welcome to the first episode of LoveTech Live. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're going to be starting with a lesson that goes over the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery is a great JavaScript library that we will be learning about here. So I made a file. We could just call it HTML Basics. It's just stored on my computer right now. It's just an empty file here. And we're just going to start from scratch and learn about the different languages that are involved with building a website. And I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible and explain myself as I go. So what we're going to start with is just the basic HTML template, which maybe even before we start that, we should talk about what a tag is in HTML, because everything boils down to tags. So the HTML file is really just one big HTML tag. And there's two ways to write a tag. You either write the start tag / the end tag. You notice these carets here and the carets here with the slash in between at the beginning. This is what's called an HTML tag. And there's a different notation for simple tags. If you don't have much content, you just do this HTML / end tag symbol. But we'll start with this one. This is you'll notice that every tag has a start and an end. But tags can also have children or content. So HTML tag usually has a head tag, and a body tag. And inside of the head we put scripts and we put styles, things like that. And inside the body we put content. Some people will tell you to put scripts in the body or right at the end. It doesn't really matter these days, as far as I'm concerned. I usually just put everything up in the head so it's easy to read. All right, well let's start with a real simple page. I want to have a header bar with my logo. I want to have a left menu over here, and the main stage here. We're going to have tabs, and when you click on a tab, it'll load up some content in the stage. It's not going to actually refresh to any other pages. It'll be what's called a single page application. And yeah, let's dive in here. Probably too zoomed in over there. I want you guys to be able to read it. All right, so for the body, we're going to have three main divs. And it's worth mentioning what a div is. A div is short for divide. So you can think of it as like a rectangle. And then there's nested rectangles. So, and there's lots of styles that you can do to make it look less like a rectangle by rounding the corners and stuff. But a lot of the structure definitions for websites is rectangles. So let's have three of these divs. You can think of divs as rectangles or divides. And the first div is going to be the header bar. Just kind of making up IDs for each of them. Notice this is a div tag with a start and an end. And this is an attribute with property name or attribute name and the value. And this is a special system attribute called ID. ID is how we mark an element and give it a name, essentially. You never want to have two of the same ID. You never want to have two elements with the same ID. If you want to kind of group elements, you use class. But we'll get into that. So we have three elements here, one with ID header bar, one with ID left panel, one with ID main stage. All right? And a really cool language that you need to learn is it's called CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. And that the first S is the main thing. It's all about style. So whenever you're styling a web page, you want to be using CSS. So this is the way you add CSS to your page. You just put a style tag. And I think that might be enough, but I play it safe and tell the system what the type is. Type is text CSS, and that's best practice to put that. But now anything we put in here All the things that we put here are CSS rules that tells the browser how to format all of these pages, or all these elements. So let's dive in here and let's come up with rules for each of these. The way we do that is with the hashtag selector. Hashtag header bar means select the element with the ID header bar. And the rules that follow will be applied to all matching elements. So let's start with the header bar. Actually, let's start by formatting the HTML and body tags real quick. Because what you'll notice here, look what the body does. You see that orange thing around there? That's padding or margin. That's a margin 8 pixels. So there's going to be some like weird padding that you probably don't want. So the way to get rid of that is to put padding or margin 0. I usually also put padding 0 just to make sure it's nice and flush. Usually, a lot of times when you specify distances, and you'll say pixels, but you can always just put 0 because it doesn't matter the unit, right? 0 pixels, 0 EM, it's 0. Okay. The header bar. Oh, I also want to put position relative. Position is an interesting CSS rule, and it has a lot of importance for laying stuff out. Relative means that you're going to put, or that the children are to be placed relative to the parent. Position fixed means to put it based on where you want it on the screen. Position absolute is based on where to put it based relative to the parent element. So in this tutorial, we'll be using position relative for HTML and body, and position fixed for all of these divs. So I'm going to make 3 rules: header bar, left panel, main stage, all with position fixed. Gosh, I can't type, I'm sorry. Alright, so what this is going to do, well, let's flesh this out a little bit. The header bar is going to be width 100%. We want it to go all the way across the screen from left 0 pixels to right 0 pixels. And we want the height to be 60 pixels. And we want the, I should do it. And then, so that's this region up here from coast to coast, 60 pixels down, right up against the top 0 pixels. So let's go to left panel now, and position fixed, left 0 pixels, top 60 pixels, because we want it to start right underneath that header, and a width 250 pixels, bottom 0, and that looks good. Let's give these some colors. So the header bar is going to be gray. The left panel is going to be light gray. And the main stage is going to be green. And the main stage goes from 60 pixels from the top all the way down to the bottom, from 250 pixels on the left all the way to the side on the right. And that's looking good, so we'll save that, run it. You see our 3 elements. That's easy, right? And there's a bunch of different ways to do this in various pros and cons of each way. This is a real simple demo just to show you some CSS. But usually you won't want to make your page entirely from scratch, even though it does have the benefit of reducing unwanted bloat. You'll often want to find a good template online, like on a site like Wrap Bootstrap or Theme Forest. Go there and find something you like. You just download the project package, and then you can play around with it and make it your own. They're only like 20 bucks. But let's keep diving here now that we have these main elements. I hate that green. All right. So something else you'll see down here is I have the developer tools open, and you just go to the options in Chrome, more tools, developer tools. or I always just hit Control-Shift-I or F12, and then you've got some awesome tools for fine-tuning things. Like I don't want it to be that dark up at the top. I want it to be a real light shade of gray. And I'm a big fan of gradients. Oops. Sorry. I'm a big fan of gradients, so I like to do I'll do it after this rule. Background, image, linear gradient. We'll use that color we just picked, and we'll use, I don't know, this gray. Oh, that looks good. I also want to add some border down here. So we'll do border, bottom, 2 pixels, solid blue. And one thing you'll see is that we get some cutoff here. That's because of how divs, let me show you the computed, well, let me just add the rule that we need. It's a box sizing, border box. And what this tells the browser is that, yeah, I added a 2 pixel border at the bottom, but I really care about the pixel or the height being 50 or 60 pixels. So that's how you should size the box, is by including the border in the box. So that's why we don't have anything overflowing and being eclipsed by other elements. So let's pick a nice dark blue. That looks good. Copy these rules in. That's what's so nice about developer tools, is it just lines them all up for you. All right, so also I want to add inside the header a logo. Oh, let's do ID. ID is logo, so we'll style it up to, well, I'll show you actually how to do an inline style. So you saw up here we're making rules that are global to the whole page, but down below we're going to just, on this element, let's just be lazy and put styles right inside the element. So you'll see I have an attribute here, style. Just like up here we had an attribute ID. So let's put some style on here. Font size. Let me just copy some stuff. We'll do 30 pixels for the font size and some padding. And let's put LoveTech live. Coming at you live. All right, but I hate this font, so we'll that's why I have this tab open here, Google Fonts. So it allows you to check out how your font looks in all these different options. And whenever you want to use one of these options from Google Fonts, you just click plus, the plus sign. So I did this earlier, and I already added this one that looks like AC/DC. Add that, definitely. And I like this one, Open Sans. So we add those 2 fonts. Once you picked all the fonts you like, you just copy this thing. And that's just Google's nice little package for you. It'll download everything the browser needs to show those cool fonts. And then you just get to use these rules. So we'll use this one first for the logo. Let me zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to use the Open Sans, this one, or this one here. I'm going to use that for everything else on the page. Right? So we'll go here. Got that nice font. Let's style this. Oh, I kind of like that. Let's put some tabs over there. Now, remember we learned about what an ID is. An ID is when you have just a single element somewhere and you want to give it a name so that you can talk to it with your style rules and with your script. But a lot of times there's going to be this notion of thing, or sorry, this more of a group mentality where you want to group certain elements into a style rule or into how you handle them with the script. So let's give this a menu item class. I just made that up, menu item. And I also want to give it a property that we can leverage. We'll call it tab. This will be the dashboard tab and the dashboard menu item. This will be the executive summary. This will be the graphs and charts. And I can already tell you that we're going to be styling this, right? That's why we put the class there. So we'll put a menu item class rule where it's, say, padding 3 pixels, 5 pixels, font size 18 pixels. Let's do box sizing, border box. Background color white. So I usually just try to guess a couple of rules, and then I usually make a typo or two. No, I'm just joking. I usually come over here, see how it looks. It's never quite, I mean, you get better at getting close on your first shot, but you're always going to want to switch back to developer tools to fine tune, right? Alright, so we got some styles there. Looks pretty good. Oh, I forgot. Cursor pointer. Always put a cursor pointer. That's a CSS style so that people know that they can click on the things. And in this case, we're going to want one of these menu items to be selected. So we're going to make this class up. It's called active. And whenever there is an active class on your tab, on the tab, it's going to be blue to indicate that it's been selected and that that's the content that's being showed. And we'll apply it to dashboard first. Now this brings up an interesting thing that we haven't talked about yet, and that's when you have multiple classes that you want on the same element. And that's totally supported, but the syntax is a little bit confusing. You still just say class, even though you have multiple classes. Stays in the singular. Class equals, and then you can put as many classes as you want, and you just put a space in between each one. So you can't put a comma, because that means something else. You got to put a space. And there's lots of little weird things like that. Like I should have mentioned up here, I have this rule, menu item active. So these are two classes, and they're pushed right up against each other. They're kissing. That means that I'm talking about all elements that have both of those classes. So for instance, this element has both of those classes. What it does not mean is this, it does not mean the same thing as this, menu item space dot active. That means all active classes within a menu item. So that would be like all children with class active within a menu item. But that's not what we want, right? I'll go into this in much greater detail in a later video, but I don't want to confuse people or get too complicated. It's really nothing to be scared of. It's just a lot of little rules you got to learn. But once you learn the rules, you can do lots of stuff. Let's see how this looks once we applied that class. Oh, I hate that blue. Let's fix that. And something else that some people get confused about is that you do have to, you can play around with the styles down here, but you still have to transfer it over to your source code. This isn't any way to make the change to your site. All right. Now I'm clicking on these and it's not selecting them. That's because we haven't put any reason for the code to toggle around. And we'll do that next. That's when scripting comes involved. So let's start here in the main stage area. I'm going to have 3 main content blocks, and we're going to hide away the ones that are not being used. And whenever they click on a tab, it'll show the right one, right? So we're going to have 3 divs. And remember, whenever we have like a common thing between elements, a lot of times it's helpful to give all of them the same class. So we'll call this tab content class. We'll have 3 of these. And we'll match up the menu items to the tabs with this mechanism. And you'll see, let me explain that mechanism a little bit. You'll notice on each of these divs has this tab. It's called an attribute. So just like class is an attribute, I just made up my own attribute. It's called tab. And it's the name of the tab, the content that I want to show. So nothing's going to happen automatically. We're going to have to tie this all together with a little bit of JavaScript and jQuery. But let's put some content so we know that it's being shown. Okay, so you see they're all showing right now. I forgot to hide the secondary ones. These will only be shown if they click on a tab. Display none, you'll find yourself using this a lot. Display none is the way with CSS to hide an element. Some other things I want to do, I want to add some padding onto the main stage. And I want to make the page headers larger. All right. So still nothing on the click front, right? When you click on it, it's not toggling. That's what we're going to do now. But I should preface this with a little bit of an introduction to JavaScript. So if you've never used JavaScript before, you just have to think of everything in terms of variables. All right? So a variable stores a little piece of data, and then with your lines of code, you combine variables, you check the values of variables, you do different things depending on the values of variables, and you it's really detailed. So that's what a lot of people get confused about. They're like, yeah, I read the tutorial on JavaScript, but I didn't see how to use it really easily or for anything impressive. And in that front, you might have to turn to a framework or a library like jQuery, where there's a lot of packaged up JavaScript that you can leverage. But you'll find yourself really benefiting from knowing JavaScript. Let's start with the very basics. Let's make a variable called name and set it equal to Tim. Var means it's a variable. This is the variable name. And this is the value that we're setting equal to name. So now we have this variable in memory called name, and any part of the program could say print out the name and put it maybe up here. Welcome, Tom or Tim. So if we have name, there's other functions that we can use, like length, and that's the main one for string. And you have var I, you can set that equal to 10, and then I is 10, I plus 5 is 15. I should also mention that down here, this is the developer tools again, and this is the console tab. So it's like a little sandbox, and it's really cool because it runs in the context of your page. So you can write up a key bit of logic here, copy it over to your program, and it makes it a lot easier to develop. All right, so let's get one of the most important JavaScript libraries ever made, without question. It's called jQuery. You just go to Google or search Google hosted jQuery, and you'll find this page. Copy over. I like version 2, although version 3 is probably even better. So we go back to here. Sorry. So what this lets us, this gives us an awesome tool. Let me show you that tool. Script, type, text, JavaScript. So this is JavaScript zone here. So I could use my var name equals Tom here. But I'm going to do a special jQuery function that runs a bit of code as soon as the page is loaded. So this is a crucial function that most people wrap their program in, because you don't really want to start doing anything until your page is loaded. So let's make sure it came in all right. We'll alert jQuery is loaded. So this is an anonymous function, anonymous inner function. So a function can be passed into other functions as a callback. So it says, hey, when you're done doing your thing, call this function. Or sometimes you might pass a success function and a failure function. And based on what happens in the function in your program, you'll call the appropriate one. So when the document is ready, alert jQuery is loaded. So let's do the menu items real quick, right? So menu item dot click, sorry, runs a function, another anonymous function. So actually, this is how you would determine whether a this is if all your menu items are loaded. I like this syntax a little bit better because it's flexible. If the document loads these elements later, say your program changes these up if they log in and the page doesn't refresh or anything, this is a more robust way to install a listener on it with the on command. So on click of menu item, do this. And I'm going to be a little bit more specific here. Menu items that are not active. So if they click on the blue bar, it's not going to change anything. So that's a cool little trick. You could also just say whenever they click on a menu item, do this, and then check within here if it's an active menu item and ignore it. But this is kind of one way to do it. So they click on a menu item that's not active. What are we going to do? This is a special variable in this function. jQuery is an awesome library, and when you click menu item, it runs your function, and it gives you this awesome variable that tells you what was clicked in this case. So we know that this is the menu item that was clicked and it was not already active. So first off, I'm going to remove active from all of the menu items. And we can do that with jQuery's remove class function. And then on the tab that was clicked, we're going to add that class with the add class function. So remember class? Class is down here. So what we're saying is when they click on our dashboard tab, or actually let's use this second one as an example. When they click on executive summary over here, it does not have the active class. So this matches. So it says, hey, he clicked on it. Let's run this function. And it passes this tab here. So we remove the active class from everything else. That's what this line does. It removes that blue, and then we add the active class to the one that was clicked. And then we still have to, down below, show and hide the right content. So the way we do that is we say var tab ID is this.attr, and that's jQuery's attribute function. And it's a quick way to look up an attribute. So what I'm saying is when they click executive summary, look at what the tab attribute says. Store that into the tab ID variable, right? So let's just alert that for now, one step at a time, since a lot of you are just getting started. See that? But if I click on one that's already active, it's not going to run. So that's pretty cool. But I don't really want to bug the users by alerting a random phrase to them. So let's do the right thing. And the way we do that is we're going to hide away all the tab content classes or divs with that class. And then we're going to fade in, which is a jQuery animation that reveals an element that's hidden. The tab content with tab equals to that variable. Right? Boom. So jQuery is a really powerful and expressive way to do what you need to do with the HTML, or what they call the DOM, the DOM, Document Object Model. All right, let's keep it going. Got a simple page going. Let's add in some icons on these menus. So Font Awesome is an awesome way to add icons. So you copy this link, and now you can use Font Awesome. So let's put an icon, zoom out a little bit. I'm going to put an icon in front of each of the menu item texts. And we'll give it, each of them will have the class FA, that's for Font Awesome, and then Font Awesome, FA again, dash, and then the name of the font. And you can just go to Font Awesome site and they make it easy to browse. All right, not too bad. It could be a little bit better. Let's get fancy here. Remember what it means when we put a space in our selector. That means that we're only talking about children of this parent. Right? So this rule right here says find all the menu item classes and then see if there's any eyes. I stands for icon. It's the tag that Font Awesome uses. So, and if you find any, apply these styles. Margin right, 3 pixels. And let's also maybe put some style when they hover over one of the icons, or over one of the menu items. That's a good way to learn about hover styles. So menu item hover, background color, light gray. It's a bit dark. Let's go DF, DF, DF. It's about the same, but you get the point. And we're only going to want to do that when it's not active. Because you see, we don't want that to happen. All right, that's better. Let's get fancier. Let's style the icon to turn blue. when it's hovered on. Perfect. Okay, let's keep going. I'm not vouching for this style, by the way. I'm just kind of doing a demo here. So that's the basics of HTML, CSS. I should point at the right part of the program. CSS, JavaScript and jQuery, and HTML. And you learn all the parts, and you can build some awesome things. Let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything here. Nope, that's it for now. I'm going to go offline for a second, but I'm going to come back for a follow-up episode on responsive content in programming and web development. This presentation was brought to you by Man's Computers, which makes awesome PCs for developers and animators and people who need power and lots of monitors. We can do up to 6 monitors, and we'll send anything you need for your computer. We can pack in up to like 44 terabytes, so you can power your home server or something, and we can do either Ubuntu or Windows. So check out our site at manscomputers.com, and like and subscribe to LoveTech Live, and we'll see you guys around. All right, thanks for watching.